the History Nook.
A battle typically involves two parties. There are times when three or more sides fight, either together or individually. An army fighting a battle by itself is rarely victorious. One such battle that has been immortalized in legend is the Battle of Karansebes, which took place in 1788, only 3 years before the conclusion of the Treaty of Sistova that ended a 265-year-old conflict between the Ottoman Turks and the Austrians. Though some contemporary academics doubt the battle's veracity, it nonetheless teaches us valuable lessons about the Ottoman Habsburg Wars and how we interpret the history of warfare.
Almost 1 year before his campaign against the Ottoman Empire succeeded to take Belgrade from the Turks, Holy Roman Emperor Joseph II began a massive campaign against the Ottoman Empire in 1788.
This time, Romania was the destination. General Gustav Wilhelm von Wartenslieben's Austrian army was routed by the Turks as they crossed the Danube. To defend Hungary, which was in danger, the Austrian emperor had to head up against the Turks by himself because, at the time, his Russian ally, Empress Catherine II, was busy in a war with her rival Sweden up north. In September, an approximately 80,000-strong Austrian force broke into the Ottoman territory. The army, led by Emperor Joseph II, was made up of people from many ethnic backgrounds, including Slovaks, Italians, Croats, and Serbs. The army ultimately reached the valley of Karansebes, disheartened and tired from the effects of sickness, and the Timish River was their overnight destination. The emperor's goal that night was to attack the Turks to shift the battle to Wallachia, after they discovered that the Turkish army, led by Koca Yusuf Pasha, the Grand Vizier of the Ottoman Empire, was near them. The Austrian army's generals convened at the emperor's tent to deliberate the strategy for combat. Everyone believed they would win in the end and only suffered a minor casualty. The emperor inquired of Austrian generals if they would be victorious over the Turks, and they said that, if all goes well, they hoped to win. General Franz Moritz von Lacy was one of these generals. He had experience in wars, especially his participation in the 7 Years' War. The majority of the European great powers fought in that war, which was fought mainly in Europe, the Americas, and Asia-Pacific. It took place between 1756 and 1763 and brought about important political and territorial changes. The army's Hussar cavalrymen crossed the river to look for the Turks while the generals conversed inside the tent. The word Hussar or Hussar in Hungarian is derived from the Serbian word Hussar, which means brigand or pirate. After the Ottoman invasion of the Balkans, Serbian fighters fled to Hungary, where they became the forerunners of the Hussars. They fought the Turks and other adversaries as mercenaries and raiders. Other ethnic groups, including Poles, Germans, Hungarians, and Croats, later joined them. Following their crossing to the river, the Hussars met Black Roma people instead of the enemy and were unable to locate any signs of them. After a brief haggle, the Roma people agreed to sell these cavalrymen women and liquor in exchange for money. The cavalrymen got off their horses and started to sip the drinks. A few hours later, another unit from the Austrian army moved across the river. They noticed on the ground sober Hussars. A fight broke out between the two groups when they asked the Hussars to share the drinks, to which they objected. To frighten the Hussars and steal their drinks, the Romanian soldiers yelled, "Turci! Turci!" In the meantime, a shocked soldier opened fire. The cavalrymen believed the soldiers in front of them were Ottoman soldiers posing as Austrian soldiers when they heard gunfire at midnight. Abruptly, fear gripped the Hussars, and they all sprinted for the bridge to cross the river. The Austrian officers yelled,
"Halt! Halt!"
in an attempt to calm the soldiers. However, the majority of the soldiers were completely ignorant of German, which made the chaos grow worse because they thought the officers were shouting the war cry of the Ottomans. A commander, observing the mayhem from a distance, ordered the cannons to open fire, believing the Turks were indeed approaching. The magnificent Austrian army battled valiantly while shouting,
The Turks! The Turks! Take precautions for yourself!
The smell of gunpowder and blood was all around. Emperor Joseph II fell from his horse into the river. Despite the efforts of the guards surrounding him to keep him safe from the chaos, some sources said that he crawled to a nearby house so he wouldn't be caught by the Turks. Even though this scene didn't happen, all sources confirmed that the emperor was sick. 2 days later, the Ottoman army arrived at the scene of the incident, completely oblivious of what had happened. In front of them, 10,000 dead Austrian soldiers were discovered. Consequently, the Battle of Karansebes became the most straightforward victory in Ottoman history. One confusing fact about this battle is that there are no historical records of it. Decades passed before the battle's full story was published, and while the Austrians were probably not in a hurry to disclose all that had happened, it is improbable that they could have concealed such a catastrophe for 50 years. This does not imply that military historians should not spend time studying the Battle of Karansebes. On the contrary, the fabled conflict reveals a great deal about the Austro-Turkish War and the prejudices that permeate our understanding of the past.
The History Nook.